The winter sky above King's Landing wore the bruised hues of dusk, the dying sun smoldering against ragged clouds that drifted like ash over the city's shattered crenellations. Snow, real snow at last, not ash from wildfires or pulverized stone, descended in soft, uncertain flurries, setting chill diamonds upon the soot-blackened teeth of the Red Keep. Jon Snow drew back his hood and let the flakes kiss the scar beneath his left eye. The wound had healed, yet on evenings such as this, it throbbed with a phantom heat, as though the dragonfire that birthed it still licked his flesh. He welcomed the pain. It reminded him of what had been lost, and of what yet must be won. He stood upon the empty rampart where once the king's banners had flapped in the sea wind. No banner flew there now. The seven-pointed star he carried in his gloved hand, a banner stitched hastily from white wool and midnight silk, waited for its first breath of air. A dozen silent shapes stirred behind him. Old brothers of the Night's Watch, gray cloaks newly dyed in the rich blue of the faith militant. And beside them the grave-eyed warriors of the Poor Fellows, their mailed hands gripping cudgels bound in strips of scripture. They watched, patient, devout. All eyes were upon him. Far below, the capital murmured. The common folk had come by the thousands to the steps of the great sept's ruin, gathering in ragged rings around broken pillars crowned with snow. They sang verses remembered from childhood, hymns of the warrior's shield and the smith's sure hand. Fires guttered in iron braziers, casting halos of orange onto faces hollowed by hunger yet lit with something fierce. Hope or desperation. Jon could no longer tell them apart. He closed his eyes and listened, not merely to the voices on the wind but to the slow beat within his breast. Rhaegar's blood, Stark's blood, the wildlings' untamed thunder, and the old god's deep quiet all mingled there. But now another pulse joined them, relentless as a drum in a siege camp. The faith. It had crept into him like a chill beneath doorsill, subtle at first, then gathering until he could not draw breath without tasting it. The Seven had been foreign to him once, statues cold as strangers when he walked the crypts of Winterfell. Yet the years had remade him as thoroughly as the snows remade the King's Road each spring. He could feel their presence now, as keenly as he felt the sword at his hip. Longclaw hung in its sheath, Valyrian steel glimmering where moonlight brushed the pommel. But Jon's right hand rested on the leather-bound hilt of a second blade, light of the warrior, forged in the smoking forges beneath Blackwater Rush, blessed by more septons than lived in Old Town. The sword was new, yet already whispers spread that steel so sanctified would know no rust, and its flame-shaped fuller would one day blaze as bright as dawn steel in righteous battle. Jon did not know if he believed such tales, but he believed in symbols, and in men's readiness to die for them. Footsteps approached, soft as snowfall. Sir Davos Seaworth halted at Jon's side. A gray shadow with a single glint where the last light caught the silver of his fingerbones. "They await your word, your grap." He stumbled, as though the titles themselves were stones in his mouth. "Your Majesty," he finished, voice low. Jon's lips twitched, half smile, half wince. "I was a bastard 5 years gone, Davos, then Lord Commander, then nothing. Now this." He exhaled, watching mist billow. "Do titles matter when the snows come?" "They matter to those who follow," Davos said, "and to those who would see your head on a spike." The smuggler knight's breath rasped in the cold. Many nights upon gray seas had left him with lungs salted by wind. "Give them a name they can carry into battle, or they'll choose one for you." Jon lifted the banner. The seven-pointed star glimmered pale in the dusk. The sword and torches crossed beneath. "They will name me heretic before dawn. Perhaps." Davos' gaze never wavered. "Or they will name you deliverer." A horn keened from the courtyard. 2 notes, long and mournful. The gates of the Red Keep opened, and a procession of warriors swept forth. The faith militant marched in ordered rows, shields held high, half clad in rough leathers, half in gleaming plate scoured of Lannister crimson. Septons walked among them, swinging censers, the smoke thick with pine resin and myrrh. At their head strode Sir Godry Faring, once a sellsword captain, now the sword of the faith. He bore the warrior's torch, a great standard tipped with gold that blazed in the torchlight. John descended the stair to meet them. Every bootstep echoed between the empty halls. Ravens nested in the high beams where courtly banners once had hung. Faring knelt, helm tucked beneath one arm. A shiver ran through the ranks like wind through threads, each warrior sinking onto one knee. The rustle of mail and leather mounted until sudden silence, expectant as the hush before a storm breaks. "Lord Snow," Faring proclaimed, voice carrying beneath the vaulted arch. "The stars have guided us to this hour. The small folk cry out for justice. The realm cries out for peace. The warrior's judgment rests upon your shoulders. Will you bear it?" "Amen." John glanced at Davos, then at the line of kneeling men whose faith had welded them together more tightly than any crown had done the 7 kingdoms in 100 years. He drew light of the warrior. The blade rang free, a resonant peal that set his heart hammering. "I will," he said. He turned to those upon the battlements. "Brothers," he called, and his voice, though quiet, seemed to fill the courtyard. "I was once sworn to take no crown, father, no child, hold no lands. That oath died in the same fire that consumed the North's peace and the Queen's mercy. I swore again to defend the living. That oath remains." He lifted the sword high so the dawn-like shimmer of Valyrian ripples reflected across the shield faces. "But the living suffer still. Kings and queens have failed them. I will not." A murmured prayer rippled outward. The 7 defend him. John felt the weight of it settle upon his shoulders like a mantle of snow. He laid the flat of his sword upon Faring's helmless head. "Rise, Sir Gaudry, Lord Commander of the warriors' host." Faring rose, eyes bright. A thin smile pricked his battle-scarred cheeks. "As you command, your grace." John's throat tightened. "Grace." The word felt ill-fitting, like armor forged for some taller man. Yet he could not deny the finality in it. The world had named him, and the name carried chains of obligation heavier than any iron. They moved through the keep then, a river of torchlight winding down stair and corridor, past crumbled frescoes and shattered gargoyles. Every chamber echoed with ghosts, Mad King, Lion Queen, dragon screams. But the dead could not hinder them. At last they emerged upon the King's Way. Snowflakes whirled in newfound gales, and before them the city unfurled. Blackened spires, collapsed domes, the charred bones of men and marble alike. Yet lanterns glimmered in alleyways where folk huddled against the cold, and children's laughter tinkled in frost-silvered courtyards. Life endured, stubborn as weeds in stone. A column of poor fellows on horseback awaited, bridles wrapped in leather braided with 7 pointed beads. At their center rode a young woman in rough-spun and boiled leather, her face shadowed beneath a battered helm. She dismounted as John approached and removed the helm, revealing hair the shade of winter wheat and eyes resolute as a frozen ford. "Your Grace," she said, "allow me. The warrior has chosen you for his champion, but the mother has not forgotten her charge. Accept the mother's mantle." She offered a length of bleached wool lined in ermine. John hesitated, then draped it across his shoulders. Warmth seeped through, subtle yet steady, as though the cloth were woven with embers. The woman bowed. "Sister Elaine, of the Brotherhood of Mercy, I will minister to your wounded." "And?" He thanked her with a nod, the words knotted in his chest. Another pledge to keep, another soul bound to his fate. Trumpets sounded ahead. The call rippled down the street like rolling thunder. The crowd gathered near the sept's broken facade, turned as one, thousands of faces upturned in the snowlight. A hush fell while John advanced between the pillars that had once borne the weight of the Seven's house. Only shards remained, jagged teeth biting at the sky. Upon a slab of marble half buried in ash, the High Septon awaited. Not the plump sparrow reborn of old, but Septon Norbert, a gaunt man with eyes pale as smoke. He raised a crystal vial, and the setting sun flashed within it. "By the light of the Father," Norbert intoned, "I anoint thee John of House Targaryen." A tremor passed through the crowd at the name, first of your name, warrior king and shield of the faith. "May your sword defend the innocent, your crown humble the wicked," Your heart remained true. Oil as sweet as orange blossoms traced Joan's brow. Norbert dipped fingers again, then pressed a wet star over Joan's breast. Will you uphold the seven-pointed star above sigil, sword, and self? John's lungs drew in the cold and held it. Long moments passed. He saw the faces watching. The butcher's boy missing 2 fingers, the matron in patched furs, the girl no older than Arya had been when they played at swords. Behind them, the city smoldered, wounded yet alive. Somewhere within, Tyrion perhaps listened from a shattered balcony, or Sansa sat in distant Winterfell by hearthlight, awaiting word. He thought of them all, and of Maester Aemon's frail voice on the wall, warning that love is the death of duty, that a man must choose. He had chosen. Yet here duty and love entwined so tightly, he could no longer tell one from the other. I will, he said. Norbert lowered the vial. Then rise. His Holiness Jon Snow, warrior king of the 7 kingdoms. The High Septon's thin voice cracked on the final words, as though the enormity eclipsed even faith. The crowd erupted, not in the bellowing roar that greets a conquering lord, but in a crescendo of prayer. They knelt, thousands upon frost-dusted cobbles. Some clasped hands, others pressed foreheads to the icy stones. Jon felt the sound inside his bones, like distant thunder on a northern plain. He drew light of the warrior and raised it skyward. Snowflakes hissed against the Valyrian edge and melted, trailing silver rivulets that gleamed like quicksilver. The blade mirrored the 7-pointed star cut in umber sky behind drifting cloud. Stand, Jon called, his voice hoarse. Stand, and know this day is yours. I claim no glory, but that which serves the realm. Together we shall bind wounds that kings and queens have torn open. By my hand and yours, justice shall walk these streets, fed not on fear but on mercy. Nah. A murmur, low yet fervent, pulsed through the multitude. Candles were lit, first a dozen, then 100, points of light bobbing in the gloom. The flames reflected in helms and shield bosses, in frozen puddles that cracked beneath pilgrim boots, until it seemed the very street was paved with stars. Davos appeared at his side, half buried beneath a borrowed cloak far too grand for a knight of flea bottom. Your grace, he said, the gold cloaks await your command. They are leaderless since the Lord Hand fled. This night they choose allegiance, or they riot. Jon nodded. Mind drawn back to iron matters. And the lords? Few remain in the capital. Lord Grafton holds the harbor. Lady Staunton guards the granaries, though the Tyrell men contest them. Riders have been sent to River Run and Storm's End. But bacon is scarce, oaths scarcer. Jon sheathed the light of the warrior, then turned to the press of septons and captains. We march at dawn, he said. Not to war, but to bread. The granaries will open, and every family will take their share. The faith militant will see it done. Neowarkeen. Faring's hand thudded against breastplate. As the warrior wills. The crowd stirred, uncertain murmurs rippling as word spread. Jon raised his voice once more. Hear me. The first act of your king is not conquest but relief. Let hunger end before more swords are drawn. A ragged cheer answered him, exhausted, incredulous, yet threaded with gratitude. Night settled fully, the city a tapestry of ember glow and moonlit ruin. Jon descended the steps into the throng, shaking hands rough with frost, meeting eyes brimming with tears. They pressed tokens into his palms. A wooden charm of the smith, a child's drawing of a deer wolf, a barley loaf still warm. He accepted each gift as solemnly as any lord's fealty, yet beneath the reverence stirred unease. He felt it most keenly when a boy of perhaps 10 seized his cloak. The child's stare cut deeper than steel, full of awe and fierce expectation. Will you bring my sister home? He asked. Soldiers took her for debts. Jon knelt, the mother's mantle folding about him. What is her name? Brina. The boy whispered. She tends the sparrows near Rainey's Hill. Jon touched the boy's shoulder. We will find her. The promise left his lips like breath in winter, visible for an instant before vanishing, leaving only the cold truth behind. He rose into the restless dark, aware of the thousands of Brinas scattered across the kingdoms, each waiting for a savior who might never come. The procession wound back through streets where snow muffled the sound of hooves. They reached Maegor's Holdfast at the heart of the keep, where torches threw red gold onto damp stone. Within the solar that once housed the Iron Throne, only rubble remained. Twisted swords melted into grotesque shapes when dragonfire fell. Jon passed the threshold and stood amid the ruin. He placed Light of the Warrior upon a chunk of fused metal. The blade that had crowned kings for 3 centuries, now a twisted relic. Sparks glimmered within the slag like trapped stars. Jon stared at them, wondering if iron could remember the hands that forged it, if steel could feel sorrow for what it had wrought. Footsteps intruded. Ser Godry and Sister Elaine entered, bearing a plain oaken chair. They set it where the iron monstrosity once loomed. The chair's legs were unadorned, the seat burnished only by the carpenter's care. "A king must sit somewhere," Elaine said softly. "Better wood than broken swords." Jon's laugh tasted of smoke. "Aye." He sank into the chair. No edges bit his skin, no blades loomed at his head. It felt wrong. A seat for a steward, not a conqueror. For a moment, weariness sluiced over him, deeper than the sea. He closed his eyes and listened to the wind threading through shattered windows. Somewhere distant, bells told the hour. At length he spoke. "Tomorrow we feed the city. The day after, we call a council of lords in faith. Let them see we serve both sword and star. They will come armed, faring warned. Then let them set down arms and break bread under one roof," Jon replied. "If they refuse, we will know who seeks peace and who seeks power." Davos rubbed his beard, eyes narrowed in thought. "Storm's End may answer Highgarden too, but Dorne, and the North. The North follows Sansa," Jon said. "She will not march south unless forced, and I pray she is never forced." A hollow beat pulsed behind his words. He had written letters, sealed with the Direwolf, pleading for trust he did not deserve. No raven had returned. Elaine crouched beside the oaken chair, hands clasped. "Your Grace, the faith has long memories." The sept burned thrice. Each time it rose stronger. "If your reign serves the realm, the North will see it." Nay. Jon hoped she was right. Yet hope alone would not mend the fractures in Westeros. He opened his eyes to the black vault above, where moonbeams filtered through broken rafters. Snow spiraled down in languid twists, settling upon melted iron and wooden throne alike, shrouding war's relics in quiet white. The city outside lay cloaked the same, softening charred bones and blood-stained alleys beneath winter's promise of renewal. But snow could not heal all wounds. He thought of Brina, of the boy's eyes, of ghosts that walked the wall, and wolves that prowled dream forests. The realm teetered upon a blade's edge, and he upon the edge of his own making. A warrior king crowned by faith alone, without armies of his own. Only zeal, hunger, and the fragile mercy of winter. He rose once more, unwilling to let weariness claim him. "Ser Godry," he said, "double the watch at each gate. I will walk the battlements." Faring tilted his head. "Alone." "I was Lord Commander once," Jon replied. "The wall taught me steel is not the only sentinel. Listen to the wind, and it will warn of foes long before trumpets sound." "No, Pam." Davos shrugged into his cloak. "Then I will join you. I've listened to many winds, most of them foul." They ascended the southern turret. From there the Blackwater Bay spread out, a vast obsidian mirror strewn with shards of ice. Lanterns bobbed upon anchored ships. Galleys from Gulltown and Bravos, their captains uncertain whom to serve. Beyond, the wide world waited, kingdoms in flux, old grudges simmering beneath thin ice. Jon clasped the parapet. Snowflakes gathered in his dark hair. "When I was a boy," he said, "I dreamed of knighthood. Not crowns. Never crowns." "You never dreamed of being murdered by your own men either, I'd wager," Davos said gently. "Fate is a stubborn sailor. It steers where it will." A cry rose from the city gates. Torches flared. Horns sounded. Jon squinted into the gloom. A rider approached, banner trailing like a comet tail. A Direwolf leaping argent on a field of white. His heart lurched. Sansa? No, too soon. But a messenger perhaps, from the north. The rider thundered across the muddy yard, snow exploding beneath hooves. Guards parted as he dismounted, racing up the stair 2 at a time. When he emerged, breath heaving, Jon saw at once this was not a northern man, but a youth scarcely grown whiskers, cloaked in Winterfell gray. The boy knelt. "Your Grace," he gasped, "I bring tidings from Lady Sansa Stark." Jon held out a hand and helped him rise. "Speak." "Winterfell stands with the Faith. So long as the Faith stands with the North. Grain will ride south on the King's Road, and steal with it, under the Dire Wolf and the 7-pointed star." The boy swallowed. "But my lady warns, betray the North, and no hearth will warm you again." Jon's breath left him in a slow plume. He felt weight lift from his chest, even as another settled. Loyalty, like iron, was heavy. He clasped the boy's shoulder. "Tell the Lady of Winterfell. Her brother hears her counsel, and pledges his heart to it." The boy nodded, relief softening his taut features. He left as quickly as he had come. Davos exhaled a laugh. "Light of the warrior indeed. You've kindled more than torches tonight." "Not I," Jon said. "Sansa lit this flame the moment she sent grain. And you will keep it burning." Davos regarded him sidelong. "Your Grace, may I speak plain? You always have. I would not have it otherwise. The Faith may crown you, and the North may feed you, but lords south of the Mander will see a bastard in borrowed robes. They'll test you sooner than later. When they do, remember your father's lesson." Jon's eyes flicked to the horizon, where the first pale star shimmered in gathering dark. "Which lesson?" "Honor is no less a sword than steel, and twice as brittle. But wield it true, and men will follow even into the storm." "Dan Deshalper." Jon clasped the hilt of light of the warrior. Its grip felt warmer now, as though some ember had awakened beneath the steel. He gazed upon the city, scarred, sleeping, yet stirring with new breath, and wondered how many storms a single blade could weather before it shattered. Of them, the warrior's star burned bright amid swirling snow, and Jon Snow, crowned but untested, breathed deep the chill air and prepared to meet the night. A brittle dawn peeled back the night over King's Landing, revealing rooftops glazed luminous white beneath the first true snowfall in a generation. The city had always taken its color from fire. Red stone, gold banners, the black plume of smoke, but now it shimmered in quiet shades of pearl and ash. Sound, too, seemed muffled. The clang of a distant smithy, the caw of roosting crows, the plaintive call of a gull circling the half-iced shallows of Blackwater Bay. Jon Snow stood upon the highest parapet of Maegor's Holdfast, breath a thin ribbon in the wintry air. Beneath him rippled a sea of motion. Carts rumbled from granaries, each escorted by 2 poor fellows in mailed jerkins scrawled with 7-pointed stars. Women from Cobbler's Square formed patient queues that wound like silver eels through the frost. The gold cloaks, bright as tarnished brass in the pale light, kept uneasy watch at major crossroads, their lack of clear command etched across every uncertain glance. He watched a moment longer, measuring pulses of movement the way a crow might judge updrafts. Behind him, boots thudded. Sir Godry Ferring arrived, helm tucked beneath one arm, plumes stiff with crusted snow. "They are hungry, Your Grace," he said, voice gravel thick with the taste of cold iron. "But the fear is fading. Hunger we can mend with bread." The Queen's pyres left deeper scars. "The pyres will become gardens," Jon replied, eyes never leaving the scuttle of street life. "Ash makes good soil," Maester Luwin used to say. "And we have seed." Faring's brow lifted. "Seed. Hope. Sown correctly, it takes root." Jon turned then. "Reports?" 5 wagons of grain reached Geddon's gate before dawn. No riot. A baker's daughter tried to steal 2 loaves. Our fellows let her keep them. Word travels, crowds gathered faster, but kept the peace. Faring paused. "The gold cloaks look on, but offer little help. They wait to see which way the wind turns." Jon considered the watch. Men paid in erratic coin, sworn first to coin, second to crown, Third to conscience. Summon their captains. Noon, the great hall. They may not come. Then send ravens to every post along the walls. They will read the invitation in the sky. Faring's mouth bent into half a grin. Your grace." He saluted and strode away. Alone again, John listened to the city's waking breath. The snow carried scents differently. Charcoal smoke braided with sea salt. The faint ghost of lemon cakes baked somewhere deep in Flea Bottom, and a sharper tang, blood copper in the air. Small skirmish, perhaps. Petty crime. Even in peace, men found cause for blades. He turned from the parapet and descended into the keep. Sister Elaine awaited just within the arched doorway, her gloved hands stained rust dark, the wool at her wrists already stiffening. "Many wounded?" John asked. "Some," she said, pushing damp hair from her cheek. "Chilblains, blades, a crushed ankle beneath a toppled cart. But the deepest wounds are old, a city in grief. Bread may fill bellies, but grief needs gentler feed." "We feed it with justice," John said, though even as he spoke he felt the words heavy, ill-shaped. "And mercy." Elaine studied him, eyes like river stones, gray, opaque, yet reflecting the faintest shimmer of light. "When you sit in judgment, remember sometimes the broken need gentler hands than the wicked." He nodded, and she left with silent, brisk steps. Noon on it. Torches had been doused in favor of broad braziers that shed wan heat through the shattered vault of the throne room. Sunlight slanted in pale bands between missing rafters, striping the floor where the oaken chair now stood sentinel among melted swords. Around it a half-circle of benches held an unlikely company. Sir Davos in thick gray wool, Septon Norbert robed in drab linen stitched with silver stars, two iron-hard poor fellows bearing witness. Sister Elaine with her herbal satchel, and Grand Maester Herodon, newly arrived from Old Town in rumpled saffron hair. "We re-arrived from Old Town in rumpled saffron hair." Opposite these clustered a handful of lords. Young Lord Grafton of Gulltown, pale from seasickness. Stern Lady Staunton of Rook's Rest, wearing her late father's ringmail as though it were a skin. And old Sir Lambert Tyrrell, not a lord but Highgarden's envoy, his once fine cloak patched at elbow and hem. John waited upon the oaken throne until the last of the city watch captains filed in. There were four, each armored in gold, half polished, half dull. Sir Glorin Withers, lean and sunken-eyed. Sir Malin Moore, broad as a door, his gaze flicking everywhere but the throne. Sir Byam Rivers, a bastard of the Crownlands, and Lysine Captain Mirio, small and quick, one ear replaced by a silver disc. They halted before him, uncertain whether to kneel. John spared them the dilemma. He rose. "Captains of the watch," he said, letting his words carry through the vaulted emptiness. "For moon turns, you served a crown that burned its own city. Now the crown you served is ash, melted to slag. The city remains. Who commands you?" "Namd Shro." The captains shifted. At last Byam Rivers stepped forward, tapping fist to breastplate. "I do, your..." He hesitated. "Your grace." But the men looked to each of us. "Our oaths different. Our pockets empty. You have not been paid?" Mirio snorted soft laughter. 5 fortnights and 3 days. The Iron Bank's purse snapped shut when wildfire lit the sky. John glanced at Davos, who grimaced knowingly. "What coin remains in the treasuries, sir?" Herodon coughed. "A few coppers rattling in an iron pot, your grace." The coffers bled dry, air across the mander. "Yes." "No surprise. Then we mint new coin," John said. "Silver, not gold. On the face the 7-pointed star. On the reverse, bread and sword, reminders of duty. The first strikes go to the watch." Lord Grafton stiffened. "Your grace, Gultan's mines lie barren. Where will this silver come?" "From the Reach?" John answered, gaze shifting to Sir Lambert Tyrrell. "Highgarden's vaults brim still, if rumor speaks true." Lambert pressed 2 fingers together. "The Lady of Highgarden recognizes the realm's sorrows. Yet, coin is entangled. Ziga engines and winter stores, costs mount." Then? John stepped forward, boots thumping the stone that once formed the Iron Throne's dais. Lady Staunton, speak truth. What did you see at the granaries this dawn? The lady's steely eyes met Lambert's. I saw mothers with infants, boys no taller than my sword, men who'd lost limbs in war, all waiting, orderly, for bread baked of reach harvest. No man or woman asked if wheat sprouted beneath roses or walls. They only prayed it filled their children. Lambert's cheeks mottled. We do not begrudge bread. You begrudge silver. Joan's tone cut the air like drawn steel. Very well. Highgarden may withhold coin, but know this. Grain without guards invites thieves, and thieves will bleed the roads. The Reach can spare swords as well as stocks, or see their wagons burned in Pisswater Bend. Lambert swallowed. You threaten us? No, John said quietly. The winter threatens us all. I simply speak its tongue. Silence coiled through the hall. Faring's gloved hand rested upon pommel. Sir Davos watched like a weathered mast braced for squall. Then, Septon Norbert cleared his throat. The father teaches that debts, unpaid, corrode the soul. Grant what aid you can, Sir Lambert, and trust the warrior to protect it. Lambert bowed shallowly. I will send word to Lady Olenna. She sees merit in honoring oaths. John inclined his head. Good. Captains, the watch will patrol beside the Faith Militant from sunset onward. Any man found stealing bread will be judged by the Mother's Temple Courts, not hanged without trial. Temple Courts. Withers echoed. The Septi is rubble, John acknowledged. Yet its justice endures. Set up benches in the Plaza d'Or. Let the people see the law is not the crown's cudgel, but their shield. Dismissed. Then, the captains saluted, some crisp, some slow, then departed. When they'd gone, Herodon sighed. Temple courts, minted silver, shared patrols, ambitious. But without ships, your grace, none of it reaches the Vale, the Arbor, or Dorne. Lord Grafton coughed. Gulltown's fleet stands ready, though decks rot for want of pitch, and sailors for want of pay. Mend that with Highgarden silver, John answered. Sailors will earn 3 marks a moon, captains 5. Grafton smiled. Thin, calculating. The small folk will cheer such wages, but they cheer louder for freedom from tariffs, dock fees. Halved until spring. Generous. Necessary, John said. Ships bring onions and oranges, salted fish and fine cloth. Trade is breath. Hold it too long, the city suffocates. Devos' mouth twitched. Spoken like a smuggler, your grace. Spoken like a man who has starved, John replied. Endemau. That night snow deepened in drifting dunes against broken walls. Torches lined the Kingsway, guiding stragglers toward makeshift hearths, where Sister Elaine's acolytes ladled onion broth from iron cauldrons. John walked among them in plain cloak, longclaw hidden beneath rough spun. He spoke little, preferring to listen. He heard a woman tell her daughter stories of Baelor the Blessed, though she forgot half the names. He heard a one-armed blacksmith promise to shoe every horse the warrior king might ride. He heard the hiss of frost against coals, the soft sob of a youth praying for a sister lost in dragonflame. Near the foot of the hill he found Brina. She was older than her brother's memory, 12 perhaps, wide-eyed and gaunt. She tended sparrows indeed, huddled children who slept beneath the shelter of a broken portico. John knelt beside her, handed her a woolen blanket dyed stark gray, and said nothing as she unfolded it over a younger boy whose ribs rose like harpstrings beneath skin. When she met Joan's gaze, recognition flared. She said only, "Thank you," then returned to her vigil. John straightened, feeling the mantle of responsibility weigh heavier with each grateful stare. He almost fled to the ramparts to breathe the sharper air, but duty tethered him. He turned inland, toward the Guildhall of Chandlers where tonight the poor fellows quartered. Council awaited, informal, unscheduled, vital. Inside the hall, resin smoke perfumed the air. Wax mounds towered, discarded by candlelights who'd fled when wildfire raced across rooftops months ago. Now they served as makeshift altar. From their drip-sculpted forms rose the spicy tang that stung Joan's nostrils. Sister Elaine, Septon Norbert, Davos and Faring gathered around an overturned barrel used as table. Maps unfurled across its scarred surface. The King's Road traced in charcoal, harbors marked with inky circles, holdfasts annotated with tiny runes. Norbert spoke first. Dorn dispatches riders up the Princess Pass. 10 days at speed, their message unknown. John's finger tapped Sunspear on the map. The Dornish have little love for the faith. Davos nodded. But they love independence more. A fractured realm to their north suits them, if winter weren't blowing salt snow over the Boneway. They'll want grain too. Then trade, John said. Citrus and olives for wheat and barley. Grant them lower tariffs than Gulltown. Sunland produce spoils faster. Nanin? Faring huffed. You bribe them. Win them, John corrected. Steel wins battles. Bread wins wars. Sister Elaine touched a soot-smudged circle near Crackclaw Point. Reports of raiders here. Sell sails under no banner. They prey on refugee barges. Send skimmers from Dragonstone, Davos offered. I once captained Black Betha through those shallows. With 2 swift galleys, we could harry them back to sea. Do it, John said. But fly the star, not the wolf. Davos lifted a brow. The wolf still hunts with the warrior? John met his gaze. Always. Yet some hearts fear the wolf's jaws more than the star's sword. We lead with faith. The North guards our flank. Faring shifted. Speaking of flanks, Storm's End. Word says Lord Gendry readies his smiths at the forge towns. Siege iron, churned day and night. Gendry was loyal to Daenerys, Davos reminded. But Baratheon blood pulses stubborn. John said. And Storm's End has known too many kings these last years. We cannot ignore a castle with walls as thick as winter ice and forges hotter than dragon flame. Nadinisiari. Norbert took a breath then, dust motes swirling in lamplight. If I may, your grace. The faith names the god of smiths, the god of healing. Lord Gendry's hammer may be guided by the smith's hand. Extend invitation, not threat. John considered. A letter then. Offer an alliance of craft. Let Storm's End forge the silver coin dies. In turn, we send reach grain to his stormlands. Elaine's lips curved. Coin minted by a bastard who rose to lordship, for a bastard who rose to kingship. Poetic. That one. John nearly smiled. Bastards of the realm unite. Davos rapped knuckles on barrel. Some lords will choke on that jest. If they cannot swallow bread minted with your face, they'll spit blood instead. Then better they spit than starve the realm. Danos. When council finally disbanded, the moon reigned high, frost glittering on wax-slick floors. John returned to the solar and found Grand Maester Hiradon waiting. Quills and parchment arrayed upon a narrow desk salvaged from the ashes of the Hand's Tower. The old man's ear for diplomacy equaled his love for neat ledgers. He'd transcribed every decree John uttered since dawn. The letters for Storm's End, Sunspear, and Highgarden await your seal, your grace. Hiradon said, voice thin as parchment. Shall I affix direwolf or star? Both, John answered, seating himself. In equal size. Hiradon dipped his head. Balance is a precarious art. One misstroke, the quill shatters. John poured black wax beside candle flame, watching it pool like spilled ink. The broken quill can still write, he murmured, if mended with care. He pressed the twin seal, wolf and star entwined, into warm wax. Outside the shutters, wind howled. Snow rattled against panes like 1,000 claws. John closed his eyes, and for a moment he stood again atop the wall, tasting night frost so cold it burned his lungs. He heard ghosts' distant howl, felt the rumble of ice beneath boot, smelled pine resin and old fear. He opened his eyes and dipped quill to parchment, signing in deliberate strokes. John of House Targaryen, first of his name, Warrior King, Shield of the Faith, Vowed Brother to the Realm. The titles looked alien, like armor forged for a stranger. Yet beneath them he signed once more, smaller, Bastard of Winterfell, because every crown sat crooked upon that truth. Immensal. Dreams stalked him that night. He walked a corridor of weirwood doors, each carved with a different face of the seven. Behind the father's door echoed the clash of steel. Behind the mother's, the soft surus of lullabies. He opened the door, marked warrior, and stepped onto a field of snow that stretched endless. Figures knelt in rows, men and women, children and elders, all wearing white tabards, stitched with stars of pale blue flame. They looked up as one, faces empty of feature yet heavy with expectation. He lifted light of the warrior, but the blade shattered into 7 shards that rose like comets, streaking outward across the sky. Where each shard fell, a pillar of flame erupted, melting snow, leaving black scars on white. Jon tried to speak, but wind howled through him. He was hollow, filled only with gusting cold. The faceless multitude turned away, trudging toward the distant fires, leaving him alone upon the ice. From the shadows beyond thundered hoofs. An army of riders cloaked in night, eyes burning blue, charging, spears lowered. Jon reached for Longclaw, but found only a stump where his arm had been. The riders neared, frost burst beneath their steeds, and in their van galloped Sansa, face pale, eyes glacial, a crown of icicles upon her brow. She raised a horn of thin bone. When she blew, the sound cracked the world. The ice beneath Jon's feet shattered, and he fell into darkness shot through with 7 threads of light. He woke drenched in sweat that turned to chill on his skin. Distant bells tolled dawn. He rose, shaking, doused face in water gone half ice. Well, day 2. Granaries opened before sunup. Wagon trains rolled out under improvised banners. White cloth, painted with crossed sheaves and a starburst. Gold cloaks marched alongside poor fellows. Tension knotted shoulders, yet no blades were drawn. Jon rode at the head, not astride a warhorse, but a dun gelding with shaggy fetlocks, calm among crowds. Children named the horse Sparrowbeard after its winter coat. Jon did not mind. At Cobbler's Square, he dismounted to address the people. But Lady Staunton arrived first, helm under arm, her rook's restmen arrayed behind. She stood atop a cart and spoke with a voice that rang like smith hammer on anvil. She told of wheat fields saved from fire, of a king who brought bread instead of tax, of a city that would no longer sell its daughters for a crust. The cheers she earned belonged to Jon, yet she surrendered them freely, stepping aside with a nod of fealty that needed no parchment. Word traveled lightning swift. By midday, raven scrolls arrived from the Kingswood villages. They too sought the Star's protection against bandits. Jon dispatched 20 poor fellows and 8 watch archers along the forest road. That afternoon, a delegation from the guilds petitioned. Lend coin to rebuild the Dragon Pit's dome into a sheltered market. Septon Norbert blessed the foundation stone. Jon pledged cedar beams from Blackwater timber yards. Evening's gold faded into violet. Jon returned to the keep, weary but wary satisfied. Yet Davos met him outside the gates. Eyes storm dark. A rider from Bitterbridge reached the river posts. Davos said, "Sir Lambert's letter arrived sooner than ours. Highgarden calls banners." Jon stiffened. To march? South, they say, to shield the Mander's granaries from northern pillage, but wagging tongues twist any tale. Still, 5,000 spears on the road unsettle nerves. Jon breathed slow. War so soon would snap the tender chains of trust linking the realm. He summoned Ser Godry. Ride at first light to Bitterbridge. Take my letter sealed in light of the warrior's hilt. 10 riders, white flags raised. Remind them Wheatwater's all soil, and remind them winter is not their enemy. Godry's brow furrowed. And if Lord Tyrell spurns parley? Jon's jaw tightened. Then we meet them upon the field, bread in one hand, blade in the other. Way no end. Night 3. Snow thickened. drifts swallowing alley rats and muffling footfall. John walked the silent halls of the keep, counting echoes. He paused in the ruined godswood, once a manicured courtyard, now a tangle of burnt stumps jutting from frozen loam. Snow wetted the blackened branches white, as though some ghostly arborist carved alabaster leaves. In the center rose a single survivor, a slender weirwood sapling, seedling of the one the Dragon Queen planted to placate northern hearts. Its bark was pink as newborn flesh, its tiny leaves as sharp as ruby shards. John knelt. He had no heart tree here, no face carved by ancient hands. Yet the sapling's silent witness anchored him. Wind whistled through broken pillars. He bowed his head. No prayer formed, only questions swirling like blown ash. What he asked for was guidance, but guidance answered in silence. Yet within that hush, he felt the faintest pulse, as if the weirwood itself breathed. Slow, deep, ancient. When he rose, snow had dusted his shoulders. A shape emerged from archway shadow. Sister Elaine. She carried a lantern that painted the bark gold. "I wondered where the king found his quiet," she said. "This tree. It shouldn't thrive in southern heat, yet it does." His gloved finger brushed a leaf and came away crimson. Perhaps because it suffered fire. Fire tempers, so the smiths say. Elaine set the lantern at the sapling's base. "Or because roots run deeper than crowns. Remember that, your grace. When storms break branches, roots hold." Deadened howl. Dawn 4. A raven beat wings against frost-hung eaves. It bore parchment rimed with ice. Lady Olenna Tyrell's hand. "Bread travels faster than fear," she wrote. "Yet fear fattens slower than bread." And later, "Send no envoys past Bitterbridge. My roses are thorny when pricked. But know that a rose prefers sunlight to snow. Provide light, warrior king, and you may yet pluck my support." Davos blew out a breath. "She is not closing the door." "No," John said, folding the note. "She wishes to set the price." "Which is?" "Proof." John gazed east where the sun lifted, a copper coin over slate rooflines. "Proof that thrones built of faith do not tilt beneath winter storms." "Then we give proof," Davos said. "Hold court, pass judgment, mend the docks. Every day you remain alive and unbent is proof enough." Then, alive and unbent. The phrase lingered like breath fog. John thought of riders with pale blue eyes galloping through dreamed snow. And that afternoon brought bigger tidings. A Dornish envoy under orange banners approached at Stormbreaker Bridge. Ser Godry, returned from Bitterbridge en route, met them with his escort of poor fellows. No blades drawn. They camped at the mouth of the Blackwater, tents of burnt orange leather pitched against drifted snow. John descended to the camp by twilight. Braziers cast flickering halos on sand-colored silk. The scent of spiced wine and cured lemon drifted in steam. The Dornish envoy emerged, a tall woman in quilted scarlet, hair braided tight with copper rings. Armor adorned her shoulders, lacquered plates shaped like coiled vipers. "I am Lady Nymeria Nimeros," she said, voice like wind across heated sand. "Captain of Sunspear's second spear, envoy of Prince Corin Martell. Jon Snow, warrior king." Her lips curved, ambiguous. "We have heard the faith once more wields swords." The Martells recall burned children beneath dragon banners and shattered bones beneath sept rubble. Yet war drains even parched wells. "We would see if your sword draws blood or water." "None." John inclined his head. "My sword draws only what necessity demands. Winter walks north and south. We propose trade. Grain for citrus and olives, silver for ship timber, knowledge for knowledge." Nymeria's gaze sharpened. "Knowledge?" The Citadel hoards treatises on irrigation lost since the Royner crossing. The Mother's Temple will copy and send to Sunspear. In return, the Water Garden's maesters share their scrolls on drought husbandry. "Narmdoan." Lady Nymeria crossed arms. "A fair trade. But Dorne also remembers the faith's knives in Aegon's time, when the warriors' sons hunted those who would not kneel." John's voice cooled. The faith does not hunt children now. I will not allow it. And if any call for such, my sword will answer them first." She studied him a long moment. Then she unfastened a leather tube from her belt and offered it. John accepted. Within lay a single orange blossom pressed flat, fragrant even beneath waxed paper. "Prince Corin sends this," Nymeria said. "In Dorne, blossoms bloom in frost when tended with care. Show care, warrior king, and perhaps one day that blossom roots upon the Trident's banks." John bowed. "The Tao won't remain." Snow gave way to sleet on the 5th day. Streets became rivers of slush. The cities refused floating in gray torrents. Yet bakeries fired ovens without cease, and soup lines shortened as distribution improved. John stood upon a wharf where Grafton's carpenters replaced worm-eaten planks. Sailors hauled tarred rope, their voices rising in bawdy shanties. In the distance towered the hill of Rainey's, crowned by the broken sept, its ruin now scaffolded. Septon Norbert supervised masons setting the first foundation stones of a new sanctuary, a low, wide hall with 7 doors, roof to be thatched in reed until better days. John felt the hum of progress like a heartbeat. Only 6 dawns had passed since the Star Banner first rose, yet already the city's pulse shifted. Still feeble, yet steadier. He walked the docks, greeting laborers, offering a hand to a boatman hoisting crates of smoked trout. When he turned, Captain Mirio awaited, one ear glinting silver. "Your Grace," Mirio said quietly, "tonight a meeting of captains convenes in the Candlelit Inn. Some speak of a prince across the sea, Egon or a sellsword king. They weigh service." John absorbed the news. "They need coin and belief," Mirio added. "Sellswords follow gold. Sailors follow stories. Then we give them a better story." He asked Sister Elaine to gather lanterns and spare blankets. As dusk deepened, John donned plain cloak once more and slipped into the Candlelit Inn, a sprawling dockside tavern whose roof leaked in 4 places, whose lamps burned pungent whale oil, whose clientele were men hardened by brine and loss. At a corner table, 6 captains argued over dice. John approached, set 2 loaves and a jug of warm spiced wine upon the board, and sat without invitation. Silence fell. Eyes narrowed. A storm-scarred Borvosi captain spat a stream of olive pits. "You," he said, "owe us coin." John poured wine into chipped cups. "I owe you truth. Coin comes after." He did not raise his hood, let them see the scar. The eyes too tired for lies. "I have no fleet, no treasury fat with Myrish gold, only bread and hope. Yet winter grows teeth sharper than sellsword steel. Sail with me, and the star will guide you to harbors open, customs low, and cargoes fair. Sail against me, and the storms will feed your bones to leviathans." A burly Lysine snorted. "Pretty words. Storms care not for banners." "True," John said, "but men do. Choose a prince across the sea, and you choose a war of conquest. Choose me, and you choose a war of survival. One pays in plunder, the other in peace. Ask yourselves which lasts longer." "Venterwante." He stood, leaving wine and bread. "I sail on light's promise come new moon. An old cog, slow but steady. Any ship may join, none compelled." He left the inn to rain sleek alleys. Behind him, voices rose, subdued, curious. Stories he knew planted seeds deeper than threats. Wonder. That night he dreamed again, but this time the field of snow had thawed to muddy spring. The 7 shards glowed softly in the earth where they'd landed, each a buried ember. When he touched the nearest, warmth spread through frozen soil. Grass sprouted green. The faceless crowd emerged, hands clasped, watching. A child stepped forward, a girl with hair of dark fire, eyes of molten gold. She lifted a shard. It bloomed into a sword of living flame. She offered it to John, but as he reached, Sansa's icy horn sounded again, distant yet nearer, and the child's sword flickered. John screamed for them to stop, but the horn's note shattered the dream. He woke certain none of this would last unless north and south bound tighter than even he dreamed possible. Enendim. 6th day. Faring's riders returned from Bitterbridge bloodied but alive. The Tyrell outrunners had harassed them, slew one horse, but let them ride after delivering a message. Lord Tyrell would not kneel to a Snow King sworn to the bones of septs his Dragon Queen burned. Unless Jon renounced all Targaryen claim, named himself solely Snow, swore never to press claim beyond King's Landing's walls, and delivered the Queen's remaining dragons should any live to Highgarden for study. Jon read the parchment thrice. Then he fed it to brazier flame. Highgarden would pluck the realm petal by petal. Davos muttered. They smell weakness, Faring said, lip curled. Jon's hand rested upon Longclaw. That we show strength, not of swords, of unity. He dispatched ravens north, south, east. Invites to a great moot in King's Landing 1 fortnight hence. All lords high and low, all free cities envoys, maesters, guildmasters, and godsworn. No crown demanded attendance, no host threatened absence. The summons bore twin seals and a single promise. To forge a charter binding crown, faith, and commons under shared law. Herodon gaped when Jon announced it. A charter? Written law restraining the throne? No king has dared since the Pact of Ice and Fire. Then let the bastard. Jon met his eyes firm. A sword without scabbard cuts friend and foe. The charter will sheathe me. Davos broke into a grin. And cut those who refuse its shelter. And all. 7th dawn cracked pale and clear. Snow ceased. Ice crystals glittered on every surface. The city stirred beneath blue sky for the first time in weeks. Children skated on frozen fountains. Blacksmiths hammered on anvils ringed with frost halos. Jon donned his simplest cloak and walked through the Red Keep down to the kennels, where hounds shivered in straw. He knelt with them, feeding scraps of mutton. One pup licked his cheek. Warm, trusting. A voice behind him. You wear peace awkwardly, brother. He rose slowly. Arya stood in the archway, hair cropped ragged, leathers travel-stained, sword at hip. Her eyes, storm-gray stark eyes, drank in every shadow like a cat in torchlight. Arya. His chest constricted. How? I followed the crows, she said. And the bread lines. Stories of a king who carries no sigil but the star. She approached until inches parted them. I wanted to see if the stories lied. And do they? She placed 2 fingers on his breast. I feel a wolf underneath. Her gaze softened. Sansa sends love, but no trust yet. She sent me to watch. Jon swallowed emotion rough as gravel. Watch then. I need eyes truer than mine. Arya smiled. A quick, bright slash of warmth, then vanished through kennel shadows. Jon exhaled, feeling roots sink deeper. Branches stretch wider. One wolf beside, one star above, and winter's chill thinning under shy sun. Yet beyond the walls storms brewed. Tyrell spears marching north, Dornish riders testing passes, cell sails weighing princes. He would meet them, not with wildfire, nor iron throne of swords, but with bread, faith, and a charter forged of every scrap of hope the realm possessed. He stepped into the sunlight, snow crunching beneath boots, and lifted his face to the sky where the 7-pointed star still shone faint even by day, a pale echo of dawnfire. Winter's breath curled from his lips, but within his chest something warmer stirred, a coal-catching flame. The quiet conviction that if roots held, blossoms would come, even to lands desolate as war's aftermath. And so the warrior king walked into his 7th day of reign. Banner of the star unfurled above, banner of the wolf beating steady beneath, and the long road to unity stretching before him like a frozen river just beginning to thaw. Eka. Night ceded to the pale hush of winter's 7th dawn, but the city did not yet stir. A hush lay over King's Landing like a heavy quilt, muffling rat squeaks, chimney coughs, the chatter of gulls over the half-iced bay. Jon Snow left the kennel yard where Arya had vanished and climbed the winding stair of the Broken Maker's Tower. each footfall ringing in stone hollows. With every step he traced the memory of her eyes, sharp as new-forged steel, bright as moonlight on frost, and felt something old and northern settle into the chambers of his heart, an ache both fierce and comforting. The wolf ran beside the star now. At the parapet he paused. Dawn light had not yet cracked the eastern clouds, yet the sky glimmered violet, a bruised promise of coming brightness. Below, the city resembled a half-buried mosaic. Glinting roofs, snow-dusted sills, the jagged black ribs of severed chimneys, every color muted under hoarfrost. Yet a single thread of gold glimmered. The braziers along the Kingsway where poor men kept vigil for the fresh loaves that would arrive at sunrise. Beneath his glove Joan's fingers brushed the rough stone merlin, and for a heartbeat he stood again upon the wall, wind howling through the ruined castle at Eastwatch, wondering if ghosts might ride it south. He had sworn to protect the living. He would not forget which oath came first. Boots scuffed behind him. Davos Seaworth emerged, rubbing arms against the bite. "Hard frost," Davos muttered. "Ice on the ropes down at dock. Men chip till knuckles bleed." "Tell the chandlers burn more pitch pots," John said. "They'll be paid in coin once Highgarden's answer turns." Davos huffed white breath. "I trust coin less than sea ice. What if Lord Tyrell marches before his purse opens?" Joan's gaze tracked a distant plume of smoke, Bitterbridge's direction perhaps, or only a crofter's cook-fire. "If he marches, we'll meet him with bread and parchment. And if that fails, the wolf will bare teeth." "The faith as well?" "Only if forced. I fought too hard to rescue the star from bloodshed to bed it in slaughter now." Davos studied him. "Your eyes have the look of men who hear distant drums. See far, but come back when the charter ink dries, else none will sign." "Iniscray," John nodded. "Ayen, I'll not drift." They descended the tower. In the courtyard, Sister Elaine supervised novices rolling casks of broth to tent rows along the mudgate. She caught John's eye, raised 2 fingers. 20 barrels, the sign said. Progress. Elsewhere, Septrons lugged brunette sacks of reach flour into the Bailey bakery. Rook's rest guards drilled beside poor fellows, their breaths great plumes as spears clacked. John walked among them, offering few words, more nods. The rhythmic routine of labor steadied the city's pulse and his own. But inside the great hall, the pulse beat faster. Grand Maester Herodon, hunched over a trestle table, ink-smudged spectacles perched on his nose. Parchment unfurled like sails in storm wind. Scribes dashed quills while Arya, hood up, lounged in shadow near a window slit. Eyes never still. Herodon looked up. 12 more clauses, Your Grace. If we list every right of guild and sept, we'll fill a volume." "Clarity before volume," John answered. Reading upside down, he traced a clause protecting sept properties from levy d'Ardeat. "Strike this if the sept shelters arms. No holy murder cloaked by sanctum." Herodon's pen scratched. "And the crown's right to tax harbor dredging? Halve it for the first 5 years," John said. "Let merchants breathe." Amity scribe coughed. "We risk the crown coffers bleeding empty." Arya's voice drifted from her perch, light as falling snow. "Better coffers bleed ink than streets bleed children." The scribe paled. Herodon nodded curtly. John leaned over the next clause. "Judgments for murder. The faith may offer trial by 7, but secular courts must stand equal. No accused denied the other." Then he felt Arya's glance. She had once chosen trial by combat rather than grovel to twisted forms of justice. Her slight nod told him the memory lived still. A herald clattered in, cheeks flushed. Envoys approached the Lion Gate, banners of the Vale and of House Royce. John straightened. "Bring them to the Solar, offer mulled wine. The road over the mountains of the moon is cruel in snow." As the herald fled, Arya slipped from her shadow. "Yon Royce," she said. "Stubborn as old granite, and no friend to Littlefinger's ghosts." John's brow furrowed. "Then we give him rock-solid reason to ally." "Oh." Lord John Royce arrived swathed in bearskin, iron rings sewn across the breast. a walking fortress topped by a frost-stiff beard. Beside him strode Sir Bobar Royce and Lady Rhea Corbray, eyes sharp as her famed Valyrian steel blade. "My lord," Jon greeted, meeting the older man's granite stare. Royce inclined his head. "Snow, or is it Targaryen today? The winds on the giant's lance whirl less." "My blood's a storm I won't deny," Jon replied. "But I answer by deed. Names are for singers." Lady Rhea's brow lifted, intrigued. Lord Jon harumphed, thawing hands near brazier. "The veil comes because my liege lord, Sweeterben, hears rumor of a charter. He frets oaths broken under God's gaze. Convince me such parchment won't founder in the first squall." Jon gestured to the trestle, where draft sheets dried. "Words alone fail unless men wield them. Sit. Amend. Your quill is stone. Make the charter strong." Robar Royce stepped forward. "Storm's End sends ravens of Tyrell host movements. If war sparks on the Mander, the veil will not be caught without wings." "Menem. War is embers," Jon said. "We choose whether to fan or smother." "Aye," Jon rumbled. "Yet, some embers devour forests, no matter how one stamps." His hard gaze swept the hall. "Prove the faith, obeys the king. Some in the Vale recall the bloody star rising after Baelor's collapse." Septon Norbert emerged from behind a pillar, robes cinched tight. "The faith obeys the seven," he said evenly, "and the king who honors them. Ours is a marriage of burden, not bet." Jon's thick brows twitched. "Then let me see that union consummated in action." Trials of guiltless men ceased. No forced tithes, stars sewn upon cloth, not flesh. Jon raised a palm. "The warrior's sons answer my call, not the other way." He turned to Faring, standing sentinel at archway. "Sir Godry, how many septi blades drawn against small folk this sennight?" "None, your grace. Every sword sworn to the star walks paired with a watchman." "Numbers speak truer than oaths," Jon said to Jon. "Ride the city. If you find one man scourged for heresy, bring the proof. I'll judge any star wielder as I would any brigand." Royce's stare cooled. He gave a single curt nod. "We'll ride, and I'll carve my sigil on the charter, if your truth holds." While Vale nobles toured breadlines and watchposts, Arya slipped, unseen, through warrens of the city. She moved like moonshade between fish stalls and slush-chuckling gutter. Her quarry, rumors of gold cloaks still loyal to dead lions. Voices told of secret gatherings in pitch-dark cellars, below the street of silk. A name surfaced. Sir Malin Moore, the broad-shouldered captain who had eyes that roamed in council. Under the guise of a washer girl, Arya delivered fresh linen to the hookhouse called the Painted Kettle, then vanished through a servant's door and stalked the cellar stair. Candlelight flickered erratic. She crouched behind a barrel of sour wine and listened. "Wait for the Tyrell spears," Moore's voice growled. "High Garden coin buys sells words enough. When the rose blooms, we strike. The so-called king will choke on bread." A second voice, oily. "And the Starmen, they'll bleed first. We steal the city gates, open for the rose host." Lions roar again. "Vemitiwad." Arya slipped away, heart hammering. She found a gutter boy with fox-quick feet, and pressed a penny into his grime-soaked palm. "To the Red Keep," she whispered. "Tell the warrior king. Moore's cellars, roses and lions, run swift." When the boy vanished up a ladder of light, Arya took the long road by rooftop and sewer, tracking Moore's conspirators. She counted faces, 12, perhaps more. Enough to open gates at night if guards slumbered. She reached the Red Keep as bells tolled none, slipping through a postern near the old dragon hatchery. Jon waited in the Godswood court, torch casting crimson leaves into liquid gold. She relayed every word. Jon listened, jaw tight. "I not have blood flood the streets," he murmured. "But traitors cannot fester." Faring wanted immediate arrests, but Jon shook his head. "Moore commands a third of the watch. Storm the cellars and his men riot. We need them see their captain judged fair." Davos' brow furrowed. Trial before the charter even inked? Precedent. John said. "Gather the watch captains at dawn. Let them hear charges, weigh proof. If they condemn more, loyalty sways." Arya's lips curved icy. "Hell claim false witness. Hell face the warrior's torch," John said. "Truth sears lies." 1. Dawn. 8. Rose, raw, and orange. In the mud square outside the shattered dragon pit, John convened tribunal. A ring of torches planted in snow. Watch captains arrayed with 100 men each. The faith militant ringed the outer circle. Shields grounded, malls silent. Common folk lined rooftops and stairwells, breath fog mingling with torch smoke. Sir Malin Moore stood at the center. Wrists bound, armor removed to plain tunic. His eyes roved the crowd, finding few friends bold enough to meet them. John faced him, light of the warrior sheathed but visible. "Sir Malin Moore," John declared, voice carried by hush, "you stand accused of conspiracy to levy war against the crown, of plotting to open city gates to foreign host, and of intent to spill innocent blood. How plead you?" Moore spat into snow. "I plead a captain's duty, to guard against false kings." Murmurs rippled. John raised a hand. "Present witness." Arya stepped forth, hood thrown back, slim as a willow branch yet eyes cold as last night's steel. She repeated the cellar vows. John produced from cloak a parchment bearing lion sigil. Seized by Arya from conspirators. Half-inked list of gold cloak names pledged to the rose. Captains, read. Bam River's cheeks blanched. Mirio cursed softly. John spoke again. "Sir Malin, you may answer." Moore's broad shoulders heaved. "The watch owes fealty to the Council of Regency. No council crowned you. Lannister gold paid us for years. Why switch purse for star-painted token that buys no bread in mire? In charm." Joan's voice never rose. "Bread lines feed your men. Reach coin will mint their wage. Yet you plot war that would burn those loaves to ash. Captain Byam, has any watchman missed rations this sennight?" Rivers straightened. "No, your grace." "Captain Mirio, has any man been denied pay token?" "None," the Lysine admitted. "Then answer why their captain would risk their future." Rivers turned to Moore. "Is it true?" Moore found no refuge in his comrade's eyes. "I did what honor required." "Honor?" John stepped closer, boots crunching. "Honor lies in shield, not dagger. The watch will choose. Captains, render verdict." Tense minutes passed as captains conferred with lieutenants. Assassin hush blanketed the crowd. At last Rivers knelt. "Guilty," he pronounced. Mirio echoed. Withers, gaunt-eyed, assented. John faced Moore. "Sir Malin, the watch condemns you. I will show mercy if your men stand firm. Kneel." Moore's jaw clenched. For a heartbeat John thought he would lunge. But the captain knelt, shoulders sagging. Snow sizzled where his breath hit. John drew light of the warrior. The steel caught sunrise in rippling orange. "By the power vested by faith and charter, yet to be forged, I strip you of rank. You will be confined to the black cells until the charter's courts convene. Then you will answer before realm and gods." He sheathed. Watchmen exhaled as if lungs released from vice. Two poor fellows bound Moore's arms, escorted him away. John surveyed the silent watchers. "Let today mark no victory but warning. Treachery breeds in darkness. We drag it into dawn. The watch stands or falls by its honor. Stand with me, and honor will carry us through winter. Betray, and dawn will reveal it." "Dim now." One by one, helms dipped. 10,000 eyes weighed him. 10,000 found resolve in bread, hope, and fledgling charter. When? That night the city thrummed with talk of justice, swift yet bloodless. In alehouses men toasted the bread king. On rooftops, children carved stars into snow. Lord Jan Royce signed 3 clauses that very evening, pen strokes bold as his battle axe. The next day ravens croaked overhead, heavier with messages. Lord Gendry of Storms and accepted the coin die commission. Wagons of Stormland's iron would roll north. In Dorne, Prince Corin decreed markets of Sunspear open to starment. On the Mander front, Tyrell outriders slowed, uncertain. Yet War's scent still lingered. Jon dreamed of ice wolves stalking wheat fields, jaws dripping gold petals. He woke with dawn 9 and strode to the weirwood sapling. Arya waited there, reflection of ruby leaves in her eyes. "Charter's bones strong," she said, "but bones need sinew. Northern spears, Vale wings, Dorne's sand. You'll need the Reach heart, or cut it out." "Now." Jon touched the sapling's bark. "Cutting hearts kills the body. We graft instead." Arya's mouth quirked. "You sound like Sam. Sam taught me words carved deeper than swords." Distant horns sounded, 3 long blasts from the river gate. Arya tilted her head. "Friends." Jon felt a tug in his chest. "Or ghosts." They hurried down snow-slick stairs to the courtyard. An honor column waited, dusted white. Banners of the Trout and Direwolf entwined. At its head rode Sansa Stark, cloaked in midnight wolf fur, red gold hair flowing like autumn flame. Beside her, Robert Glover bore Winterfell's standard. Behind marched 200 spears, shields painted with star overlaying wolf. They dismounted. Sansa approached Jon in the hush of 1,000 held breaths. She studied his face, lines traced by grief and burden, and her own eyes shimmered but did not spill. "Brother," she said, voice no louder than snow's sigh. "Sister." They embraced, the crowd's silence a cathedral vault above them. When they stepped apart, Sansa held out a scroll encased in silver. Winterfell's seal stamped over the star. "The North signs your charter," she said, steady, "not because you are king, but because you remember duty before crown." Jon's throat closed. He took the scroll, lifted it high. Cheers erupted like spring thaw bursting river ice. Vale voices joined, riverland throats, gold cloak horns. Sound soared beyond the broken sept, sweeping up Aegon's hill and outward toward still uncertain horizons. Edinburgh. That evening the great hall brimmed with torches. Lords, ladies, guildmasters, septons, captains, maesters, and rag-robed representatives of small folk crowded benches fabricated from repurposed siege ladders. At center stood the oaken throne, but Jon remained on the floor, at the charter table beside Herodon. He beckoned. "Approach and sign," he said. "No man compelled. The star lights the parchment. The wolf guards it. Your hands give it life." First Sansa pressed her name, the ink forming elegant arcs. Jon Royce followed. Lady Staunton, Ser Robar, Sister Elaine for the Faith, Septon Norbert, Grafton, Gendry's envoy, Mirio for the Watch. Each name became stitch in a tapestry, stronger than steel. When the quill paused, Jon looked to Sir Lambert Tyrell, lingering on threshold, brow slick with indecision. Murmured counsel from a river lord urged caution. Tyrell approached the table. "Highgarden hesitates," he said, voice husky. "Yet rose thorns crack if soil erodes. Weed need fresh earth." Jon waited. Lambert lifted the quill, hand trembling. "For Lady Olenna, for the Reach." He signed. From the shadowed gallery, a breath of relief rippled like wind through threads. The charter's last line remained blank. Jon dipped quill and wrote simply, "Jon, called Snow, may the warrior guide my hand." Cheers rose, then hushed as Jon lifted the parchment, ink glistening wet. "This is but ink until lived," he declared. "Tomorrow we forge seals, dispatch copies to every holdfast. Bread will ride beside the star. And when winter cracks, the blossoms of peace will root in ground we tended together." Trumpets pealed. The crowd erupted anew. In that roar one could almost forget the war that loomed beyond river bends. The sellswords waiting in pentos. The dragons, if any, still aloft in distant sky. But for one breath, unity tasted real. Resigranger. Later, Jon found quiet upon the ramparts. Sansa joined him, cloak drawn tight. Below, lanterns bobbed as folk danced in slush, celebrating dawn of charter. Lights mirrored stars overhead. The two heavens blurred. Sansa spoke soft. You have grown into father's dream, but dreams draw daggers. I know. Do you? She turned, eyes fierce. Do you know what price the realm charges for hope? Ned paid with his head. Robb with crown of arrows. Mother with tears turned to stone. I will not bury another Stark. Jon's breath fogged. Nor will I. Then heed me. Highgarden's thorns may soften, but Casterly rock still smolders. A lion in shadow claws deeper than one who roars. Moore's plot is only first. Jon studied distant hills where night swallowed outlines. Roar or whisper, we watch. Will you stand counsel? Sansa's smile was winter bright. I will sit at your left and remind you when mercy threatens justice. Arya will remind when justice threatens mercy. He chuckled, a sound rare. Between you I'll survive. Between us the realm might. Rot in sorrow. 9 days since the star banner's rise. Clouds rolled from western sea, pregnant with more snow. Yet in the smithies, newly minted coins ran true. In bakeries, loaves bore the star and bread sigil. In the Sept Plaza, a low hall of 7 doors neared completion. Gendry's ferrymen unloaded iron blanks for dyes. Dornish oranges perfumed the docks. Vale knights patrolled the Roserad, repelling brigands who once thrived on chaos. And in the secret corridors of the Red Keep, Arya slipped through a broken mosaic wall to a forgotten antechamber, where cobwebs draped rusted swords, Aegon's trophies long discarded. She tested a blade's weight, considered hidden passageways, and mapped defenses unseen. Meanwhile, Sansa drafted letters to Lady Barbary Dustin, Lord Manderly, Bronze Jon, and Nymeria Sand, women and men of influence who cut more deftly through politics than some swords. She closed each missive with the Charter's sigil. Star above bread, wolf beneath, oak leaves framing. Herodon and Norbert labored over wax tablets, calculating tithe differentials to rebuild granary vaults. Davos plotted shipping lanes, charts dotted with rows, star, sun, spear, trout, wing symbols marking coalition convoys. Jon practiced sword forms each dawn with Sir Godry and Robert Royce among cinder pillars. Sparring steel clanged, but his thoughts honed sharper. How to feed twice this populace when snows deepened. How to keep cell sails loyal when purse strings stretched. How to answer whispers that across the narrow sea, the Golden Company readied sails for a boy who called himself Aegon. Answers eluded. Yet each night he walked the Godswood to the weirwood sapling, lay hand upon living bark, and let the quiet speak. Roots deep, branches wide. Edinwen. On the 13th morning, the charter sealed copies rode outward. One north with Robert Glover, one east with Lady Rhea, one south on Nymeria Nemeros swiftest sand steed across the Boneway, one west aboard Davos, galley Black Betha reborn bound for Old Town. The final copy Sansa carried to the Sept Plaza, where townsfolk gathered. There she read each clause aloud, voice ringing over headscarves and iron helms alike. Long after parchment rolled shut, cheers lingered like sung hymns. A baker's son tugged Jon's cloak. And Lord King, will the charter stop the cold? Jon knelt, met the boy's earnest eyes. Cold cannot be stopped, he said gently. But together we build hearths high enough to push it back. He pressed a copper star into the boy's palm. Keep this. Proof hearths are coming. Snow fell that afternoon. Thick, silent. But city spirits no longer shivered. Fires crackled in reopened inns, candle smoke curled from sept windows. And somewhere near Flea Bottom, a flutist piped a tune none had heard since before Dragon Ash reigned. Yet on the horizon storm clouds, stacked, bruised and immense, and ravens beat frantic wings toward the capital. One reached the maester's rookery at dusk, claws clattering steel bolt. Herodon slit the tube, unfurled parchment, and hurried to the solar where Jon, Sansa, Davos, and Arya broke bread. From Bitterbridge, Herodon panted. Tyrell hosts split. Half marches east along the Roserwad, half south to Long Table. Scouts report sellswards from across the Mander swell their ranks. They will test your charter by steel come fortnight. Sansa's expression hardened. Arya's hand drifted to hilt. Davos muttered a salt curse. Jon stood slowly. Then we meet them, charter in one hand, shield in the other. If they come for war, they will find we are not sheep in starry cloaks. Sansa met his gaze. Yet we bring bread, not wildfire. Jon nodded. Bread to feed prisoners if God's willing. Arya ride west with Royce wing, watch roads not engage. Davos gather ships. Cut the Mander ferry should lords attempt flank. Faring, ready 60-star shields to march with me, plus North spears. Herodon swallowed. And the city? Yours, Jon said. Keep loaves baking, gates guarded, justice seated. His voice dropped soft as falling snow. If I fall, the charter stands. Silence settled. Then Sansa placed her hand over his on the map. You will not fall. Wolves hunt in packs. He covered her hand with his. And stars guide the night. The gathering broke like an exhale. Plans flew up like ravens into torchlit rafters. Jon lingered a moment, tracing the road to Bitterbridge with calloused thumb. His breath fogged the map. Droplets beaded like dew. Roots deep, branches wide, he reminded himself. Then turned to ready saddle and sword. Garu. On the 15th morning, the warrior king rode out through the river gate at the head of a column, half steel, half prayer. Shields bore twin sigils. Banners mingled wolf gray, trout silver, Royce bronze, star white. Snowflakes drifted upon helm crests, melting to rivulets that streaked metal like tears. Jon glanced back once. Upon Aegon's hill the low sept glimmered with new-laid ivory plaster. The weirwood sapling sprouted 2 new leaves crimson against white. And upon the ramparts of Maegor's holdfast stood Sansa, scarlet hair whipping in wind, Arya beside her cloaked in shadow, both watching until the column disappeared into swirling snow. Beyond lay Bitterbridge, Highgarden thorns, and the test of bread and steel alight. But behind marched Charter's promise, Faith's torch, Wolf's loyalty. Winter might press iron teeth upon the realm, but the hearth Jon Snow built burned bright enough, he prayed, to hold the cold at bay. And should the flames gutter, he trusted the people he loved to feed it with hope until dawn returned.